Hello and welcome to the Underhive. We are back with some more How to Command the Death Guard. In this series, we're going to take a look at every aspect of the Death Guard. So whether you're looking to get more out of your army, or you're thinking of poking around at Nurgle's pox-ridden pustules, then there's something here for you. Today we're going to take a look at the 5th Plague Company, the Poxmongers, who I often refer to as the Poxwalkers, which is obviously wrong. So let's jump in and take a look at what the 5th Plague Company have to offer. The relic available to the Poxmongers is Bilious Blood Rush, which is definitely effective, but a very situational stratagem. It's good that it's here in a company, but it's bad that it's limited to that company and therefore makes them somewhat situational in that regard. So this stratagem is used in the shooting phase when a Poxmongers Demon Engine from your army is selected to shoot until the end of the phase. Models in that unit can make attacks with blast weapons against enemies within engagement range of their unit. Each time a ranged attack is made by a model against an enemy unit that is within engagement range, add 1 to the attack's hit roll. So Big Guns Never Tire is a general core rule, which means vehicles can use all of their weapons in engagement range as long as those ranged weapons are not blast, because of course that would blast back and deal damage to them, given the target is so close. So typically a vehicle would be able to shoot most of its weapons in engagement range anyway. As we discussed in the basic rules, we have an exorable advance here for the Death Guard. The vehicle aspect being, if this is a vehicle unit, it does not suffer penalties incurred for firing heavy weapons at enemy units that are within engagement range. So normally it would be able to, but it would be at a -1 penalty. Death Guard don't suffer that. So any of the units that could be affected by this stratagem are only limited by not being able to fire their blast weapons. They would be able to fire all other weapons, and there would not be a penalty for doing so, given the Death Guard rules. So this specifically lets a Plague Burst Crawler fire its mortar at an enemy in engagement. Yes, you could use it on a Plague Burst Crawler. Yes, you could use it on a Blight Hauler that's looking to use frag missiles. I would personally just take the crack missile and the other weapons, and that's probably going to be enough to eat a good chunk out of an infantry squad. And of course, the Blight Hauler has some melee potential itself. Same goes, you could use it on the Bloat Drone with a heavy Blight Launcher, but I would personally take the Flesh Mower, so that's not going to be an option for me. So it is really just a Plague Burst Crawler. There are other heavy weapons as well across other vehicles, but they're far less picked because the Plague Burst Crawler is just great value for the points. So this is a kind of get out of jail free card, well, get out of jail for 1 CP card, because the mortar could certainly kill a few models if you do well on the number of hits and, do decently well on the hit and wound rolls. So being able to do that means you may not have to charge the models to get them off the Plague Burst Crawler to bring it back online to shoot any other targets besides those in engagement range. So all in all, good to have, but you can probably avoid that scenario by positioning well, screening out your vehicles so that they'd have to come through a unit of Poxwalkers or Plague Marines in order to get into the back line. And in doing so, you limit the potential viability of this stratagem because you just may never need it unless your opponent can break through that deadlock. And that's not to say armies can't do that. They certainly can. You're never going to be able to defend everything. So this will still come up even if you're playing your best, but it might not come up that often if you are a good screening player. The Warlord trait available here is the Sanguous Flux, which is, while an enemy is in contagion range, -1 leadership and -1 to combat attrition tests. So, of course, this works well with the new secondary. I'll come back to those once I've got my copy of Warzone Nephilim, which should be in the next day or two, so there'll be some videos out about that soon. But aside from helping with the secondary there, it is a nice debuff, but probably not that relevant unless your opponent has a wide army of infantry where you can plink off a few and then affect them by this, help them fail the leadership, and then of course help them fail the combat attrition on a 1 in 3 rather than a 1 in 6. So it's certainly a big effect on the combat attrition, but certain armies don't care about that. Death Guard being one, they would be affected by the leadership, but not by the combat attrition. And one leadership isn't always enough to push somebody over the edge to actually needing to roll morale. And even if it does, it might only make them roll on, say, a 6 or a 5 or a 6, where you're not necessarily guaranteed for it to happen by any means. And then the relic available is the Ironclad Furnace. Now, this is the reason I've seen this taken as frequently as I have, in my opinion. The Ironclad Furnace, in the command phase, select one friendly Poxmongers Demon Engine within 6 the bearer. Until the next command phase, models in that unit have a 4-up invul. So one thing to note, this means you're going to have to babysit a vehicle, which isn't inherently bad. Certain models don't want to do that, like, say, the Demon Prince. He's a beat stick in melee on his own. He can take a psychic power to offer some more damage or some level of support. But ultimately, he's quite happy getting in there and getting in the thick of it. Which is why I like to run Inexorable, and I put that relic on him. He's wanting to kill stuff anyway, getting some wounds back off the back of it, fairly nice. But if you're not planning on taking those sorts of warlords, maybe you're looking to take the cheaper Malignant Plaguecasters or Chaos Lords. And the idea being you are planning to babysit something on the back line because they're not that much of a melee threat, though they can deal a bit of damage if something gets in close on their own terms. So being able to give something a 4-up invul, whilst on face value, that is quite a big effect. Do bear in mind, any of the models that you're going to select for this will most likely have a 5-up invul to begin with. So you're only giving them the extra 1 on the invul. Now, that's still always an outright benefit. I will never deny that. But given you've got Armor of Contempt on all those vehicles and a 3-up save on all those vehicles against AP, which there would need to be to put it on the invul anyway, against AP, you've effectively got a 2-up save. So if it's 1 AP or 2 AP, it doesn't affect whether you've had the invul anyway. It would have to be 3 AP or more to be on the 4-up invul rather than the 5-up invul. So with that being said, obviously, 3 AP is more prevalent now with Armor of Contempt. A lot of armies are going for more of a Melter profile or at least a las cannon profile or something similar where possible. So you will certainly see that come up. There will be scenarios where the 4-up invul matters, but for me, I'd rather let my opponent try and deal the damage through the stratagems available to buff up things like Blight Haulers, through spells that are there to make things more difficult to hit, and then just heal them up afterwards if they survive, rather than put all my eggs in the basket of, I'm going to use this 4-up invul once a turn. I have to pick the right target that my opponent wants to shoot this turn because they can just leave that alone. Obviously, with Blight Haulers, they don't really want to leave 6 melters and 3 missiles alone all game. So they may well still have to shoot through it, but you could still be unlucky. Unless you roll 4s, it didn't matter. And so you put in the power of this effect on the way that it affects averages, when that isn't the practical way it changes the model, given it already has a 5-up invul. It's literally how many 4s did you roll, and if that wasn't more than 1, this probably didn't matter. And again, even against, massed fire, like say massed bolters in tactical, AP2 isn't going to be enough to warrant the 4-up invul, because it'd be on a 4-up save normally there anyway. So it's one I've seen taken far more than I would expect in like battle report channels, and fair play to them, try out what you want to try out. But I think that the 2nd and 3rd Plague Company just do that much more than the 5th to earn the Plague Company of choice. So that's it for the Poxmongers. As I say, not a bad pick. Couple of niche uses there, but particularly if you've only got one, say like one Plagueburst Crawler, and you want to just try and break the back with the opponent on that, and you're going to sit with it, then yeah, giving that one specific vehicle a 4-up invul and giving that vehicle the ability to shoot stuff in melee range is probably a fair enough reason to pick it. But I'd argue you could probably get more value out of something else catering to the rest of your army rather than one specific vehicle that you want to protect. So that's everything I wanted to cover there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time in the Underhive.